Last season, the Denver Broncos released a future Ring of Fame safety, and yet they still somehow got better at that position? What's going on, Broncos country? Gage Madrid here, Denver Broncos Syndicate. Welcome to our first positional deep dive video for the 2025 season, where we take an in-depth look at each position group for the Denver Broncos, assess their strengths, assess their weaknesses, and determine how they're going to make a difference for the squad this season. I am your host, Gage Madrid, and we're going to start things off with one of the most intriguing position groups for the Denver Broncos this year, and that is the safety position. Now, full disclosure, this is a series that I had hoped to launch in full force on the channel last season, but 10 days before training camp started, I fractured my lower leg. So that put a wrench into the series last year after just a couple of episodes. We are back in full force this year, and we're going to start off with the safety position here for the Denver Broncos. And before we do that, guys, I want to just take a minute and thank you guys. We are getting so close to 6,000 subscribers. In fact, we're less than 10 away. So if you guys could do me a big favor and subscribe to the channel and smash the like button as well, I would really appreciate it. I always say it, those are both free and easy ways to show your support. It tells YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and it helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. Without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at this safety depth chart here for the Denver Broncos. And we're going to start off the conversation with Brandon Jones. Brandon Jones is a guy who came into the Denver Broncos last year via free agency from the Miami Dolphins on a 3-year, $20 million deal. The thought process was, okay, he's basically going to replace Justin Simmons in the lineup, who was released in the offseason, and we're going to go ahead and go with a player who probably is going to have a lower ceiling, but possibly a higher floor. However, Brandon Jones blew out all expectations, man. 115 total tackles last year, which was the 6th best amongst safeties, 10 passes deflected, 3 interceptions. He was incredible. He really was. The Denver Broncos run a lot of man coverage, and that means that Brandon Jones was basically that free-range safety on the back end for a majority of the reps. But he would come downhill as well, and he would play in coverage man-on-man. In fact, 32.6 of his snaps last year came in man coverage. He had a 70.9 PFF coverage grade in man, which is really good. 17th best amongst safeties. And listen, I know that PFF grades are not everybody's cup of tea, but I like to say it every single time that I reference them on the channel. They're a good baseline tool to use to evaluate players based on their film. There's no other tool like it. I'm somebody who is more big on film than stats. This is a stat that really is based on film. It's subjective because it's some person out there that's grading it, but at the end of the day, it's a good baseline tool, and that's why I use PFF grades. He was really, really solid man-to-man, but he was also really good in zone coverage as well. The Broncos played a lot of zone, especially on later downs. They played quarters a lot on 3rd down. They'd play man-on-man. They'd blitz heavy on 1st and 2nd down. 3rd down, they'd try to get you essentially in a 3rd and 8 plus situation, and then they just play quarters or quarter, half coverage, and Brandon Jones would get a lot more zone assignments in those situations. 54.5% of his snaps came in zone coverage last year, and 89.1 PFF coverage grade in zone. Best amongst all safeties in the NFL. So Brandon Jones, a really good zone coverage safety for the Denver Broncos. 72.4 PFF run defense grade, which is quite solid as well. It's not too often that Brandon Jones is going to come downhill to play against the run, especially with Talanoa Hufanga now in the fold, but he can do it at a relatively effective level. Speaking of Hufanga, let's go ahead and transition to him here. This is obviously going to be his first season in Denver. He's just 25 years old, and Jones is only 27, so you've got a really young starting safety tandem there. Talanoa Hufanga is unfortunately one of those players that has the tag attached to him when he's healthy. He's one of the best safeties in the NFL when he's healthy. The past 2 years, he has been extremely limited because of injuries. In 2023, he tore his ACL 10 games into the year after having a really good start to the season. Then in 2024, he was limited to just 7 games with ankle and wrist injuries, a really frustrating past couple of years after he had a really strong start to 2023 and 2022 as well. He was playing like one of the best safeties in the NFL. The Broncos are sort of hoping that Hufanga can recapture that 2022 form. Last season, when he was out there, he struggled. He definitely did. 38 total tackles, no passes deflected, no interceptions. He only played 20.5% of his snaps in man coverage, and he had a 58.0 PFF coverage grade in man, which was tied for 66th best in the NFL. That's not good. There's no way to beat around that. 71.3% of his snaps came in zone, way more. 56.6 PFF grade in zone coverage last year, tied for 69th. So he struggled in coverage. There is no way to beat around the bush there. He was solid, though, in run defense, and that's sort of his calling card, and that's one of the biggest reasons why you brought him in. To defend the run, to blitz, to be that downhill sort of strong safety, if you will. NFL teams don't really use strong safety, free safeties anymore. It's just kind of a hybrid role for both of these guys. Both guys kind of have to be able to do a little bit of everything, but his run defense was solid. 74.5 PFF run defense grade. That's really good. So going downhill, defending the run, that's what Talanoa Hufanga is going to do. And Brandon Jones and Hufanga have a skill set that really complement each other. So that's going to be a really good tandem for the Denver Broncos. However, we do have to talk about the backups because what happens if Jones or Hufanga go down? And let's just be honest, Hufanga does have a high propensity of possibly going down here. So starting off with the key backups here, I do want to at least talk about PJ Locke. It's a really interesting situation with him and a really unique situation because he's dealing with an injury. Back in February, PJ Locke had spinal fusion surgery. And this particular type of spinal fusion surgery had never been performed before on an NFL player. His surgeon, who appeared on a documentary that PJ put out on his YouTube channel, said that there was no guarantee that PJ was ever going to return to play in the NFL. He has not participated at all in off-season activities. A positive update, though, is that PJ said that he feels great. He's got no more pain. That is awesome, but I still question how he's going to feel as he ramps up football activities this offseason. For me, at least, anything the Denver Broncos get out of PJ Locke this year is house money. But from a business perspective, I feel like the Broncos kind of have to operate under the assumption that PJ Locke is not going to play for them or is only going to play for them in a very limited capacity. If he's healthy, obviously he's projected to be the backup safety for the Denver Broncos, but I also imagine he could see some snaps as a dime backer. But again, the Broncos need to operate under the assumption that they're probably going to have to look elsewhere for production at the backup safety spot in 2025. And that's where I want to transition to Devon Key. Devon Key was a guy who actually played quite well for the Denver Broncos in limited action when he was pigeonholed into a specific role. He had 252 defensive snaps for the Denver Broncos in 2024 in 2 starts. He's just 27 years old. In those 252 snaps, he had 33 total tackles. 24.2% of his snaps came in man. He had a 56.7 PFF coverage grade in man. Not great. 51.6% of his snaps came in zone. 61.4 PFF zone coverage grade. A little bit better. Still not great. However, what he was really good at was defending the run. He had an 83.8 PFF run defense grade last year, which is fantastic. And his biggest role in the team was on special teams, and that's how you're going to have to make the team if you're going to be a backup safety. You're going to have to play special teams, and he played 256 special team snaps for the Broncos in 2024. I think Devon Key could be in line for a really big role for the Denver Broncos in 2025 as that backup safety and possible dime backer in the event that PJ Locke is unable to go. So he's the guy that I'm definitely keeping an eye on here to step up in PJ Locke's potential absence. Then we've got JL Skinner moving into sort of this developmental category of safeties now. JL Skinner is entering his third season with the Broncos at just 24 years old, and coming into the NFL out of Boise State, he was always viewed as a very raw player who could develop into a blitzing dime backer type player for you. Probably not the best player in the world in coverage. We'll see if he can improve that area this offseason. He only got 19 snaps on defense. 310 special team snaps, though. Again, you're going to have to make your hay on special teams if you're going to want to stick around. And JL Skinner was viewed as a special teams ace for the Denver Broncos last year. Granted, it was under a previous special teams regime being run by Mike Westhoff and Ben Kotwika. Now it's Darren Rizzi running things, so I feel like from a special teams perspective, everybody has a clean slate, and everybody is going to have a chance to make an impact and make the team. But JL Skinner is a guy that I know the Denver Broncos really like in that role, and he's also a guy that could profile as that sort of dime backer player when the Broncos are in 6 DB sets. I think that is something that could really be intriguing for JL Skinner here if he can develop his game a little bit further. We'll see what happens with him. PJ Locke being out definitely opens the door for guys like Devon Key and JL Skinner. Keidron Smith, man, he's another guy as well that is very intriguing. He only had 16 snaps on defense in the regular season, but he had a couple of interceptions in the preseason in 2024. Had a really good camp. I thought Keidron Smith was a guy who worked his ass off in the classroom and worked his ass off on the field. I thought that Keidron Smith could be a guy who would at least be a practice squad contributor for the Denver Broncos in 2024, and he ended up playing 121 special team snaps, so we'll see if he can compete for that same role potentially in 2025. I don't think that there's a spot for him any higher than that on the depth chart, but still, you can make a nice living in the NFL in that role. Delarian Turner-Yell, I want to talk about him for just a second. He's a guy who I very much view as on the roster bubble as we enter training camp. I think that if the Denver Broncos need a roster spot a couple of days into camp, then Delarian Turner-Yell might be the odd man out here. But he did play 306 special team snaps in the 2023 season before tearing his ACL in the season finale against the Chargers. He missed the entirety of last season, so he's very much behind the curve, but we'll see if Delarian Turner-Yell can make an impact and maybe stick around here throughout the entirety of the offseason and maybe compete for a spot on the practice squad. I want to mention Sam Franklin as well, who came over as a free agent from the Carolina Panthers. He's not somebody we're going to spend a lot of time on. He's basically the new Traymon Smith. He's only on this video because he's technically a safety, but I don't think he's going to play any snaps on defense whatsoever for the Denver Broncos. He played literally 3 snaps on defense last year for Carolina, but 239 snaps on special teams before going down with an injury. He's going to be a really key contributor on special teams, but again, doesn't factor too much into the safety math at all. All right, Broncos country, after taking a deep dive into this safety room, how confident are you in its depth? Do you think that the Denver Broncos have enough depth to sustain an injury at safety if Jones or Hufanga go down, or do you think that they maybe need to add a little bit more to this unit? For me, at least, I think that they have really good depth. I know that it's going to be a little bit concerning if Jones or Hufanga go down, but Devon Key played well enough last year, especially to fill in that Hufanga role, that I think that he could step in. And then you've got Keidron Smith, who showed flashes in limited action. JL Skinner, kind of the same thing. And then we'll see what happens long term with Delarian Turner-Yell. Most importantly, though, I'm hoping that PJ Locke makes a full recovery from his injury and is able to return to a pain-free, normal life Football is secondary in that regard. Alright guys, be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe to the channel. Again, I would really appreciate it. It tells YouTube to push us out. And again guys, I would really appreciate it if you could help us get to 6,000 subscribers. And until next time guys, I'm your host Gage Madrid saying peace out.